He was the undefeated king of 90s comedy. The Mask, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber. Jim Carrey made the world laugh harder than anyone, yet fans always sensed something hiding behind that explosive energy, and at 61 he finally admitted they were right. In what he calls his last interview, Carrey dropped the truth he's avoided for decades. A lifelong battle with depression, years on Prozac, a childhood shaped by his father's breakdowns, and the devastating tragedy of Catriona White. Why reveal it now? What pushed him to the breaking point? And is Jim Carrey truly done with Hollywood, or preparing for something unexpected? This is the story behind the smile. The truth we all suspected, but never fully understood. Jim Carrey was born on January 17, 1962, in Newmarket, Ontario, the youngest of 4 children in a crowded home where bills piled up faster than dreams. His father, Percy, was a jazz saxophonist who settled for an $8,000 a year accounting job, and his mother, Kathleen, spent much of Jim's childhood battling illness. The family name had once been Carrey, but by the time Jim arrived, everything felt small and strained. Even as a boy, Jim sensed the disappointment weighing on his father, a musician trapped behind a desk. To escape, he stood in front of the mirror for hours, twisting his face into shapes that made everyone laugh. At 10, he mailed a letter to Carol Burnett bragging about his impressions. When she sent back a polite form letter, he taped it to his wall like a prophecy. School became his first stage. He turned classes into comedy shows until teachers kicked him out, and classmates dubbed him Rubber Face. The laughs mattered, because at home, everything was falling apart. In 1975, his father lost his job when Titan Wheels suddenly shut down. Months of unanswered job applications forced Percy into a $4 an hour janitor job. Jim watched the man he admired cleaning floors for people who once respected him. Soon after, the family lost their home and spent nearly 2 years living in a yellow Volkswagen camper near Lake Ontario. Jim and his brother slept in a tent beside it through winter nights, washing up in gas station sinks before school. At night, the whole family cleaned a factory together for $32 a shift. By 16, Jim dropped out of school to work full-time. He cleaned floors all night and cared for his mother all day, making jokes to lift her spirits even as fear hollowed him out. Then, at 20, he found his father unconscious after a suicide attempt. The third, he later learned. Paramedics saved Percy by minutes. The trauma never left Jim. It became the fuel behind his relentless work. Yet in the middle of all that darkness, there was a spark. When he was 15, Percy drove him to Toronto's Yuck Yucks Comedy Club for his first real set. Jim bombed. The audience barely reacted. But his father drove him home in silence, wearing a small, proud smile. By 16, Jim Carrey had quit school and thrown himself into the adult world of janitor shifts and factory nights. He worked 12-hour stretches, slept in the family van, and practiced impressions on his breaks just to keep his spirit alive. Once a straight-A student, he had become angry and withdrawn. But comedy remained the one thing that kept him breathing. The poverty crushed the family. His siblings drifted away. His father slid deeper into depression, and his mother's painkillers turned into dependency. Jim remembered sitting at the dinner table while she murmured, "My brain is deteriorating. I could go at any time." Those words carved themselves into him, teaching him to use humor as armor. At 17, he earned his first $20 for a set at a small club called the Hoft. It wasn't much, but it proved he could survive doing what he loved. In 1980, he auditioned for Saturday Night Live, certain his break had come, only to be dismissed before ever meeting Lorne Michaels. The rejection stung, but it pushed him to stop imitating others and craft his own voice. Behind the jokes were deeper wounds. He'd been bullied for being poor, mocked for his clothes, and sometimes harmed himself just to feel something real. Years later, footage from an early documentary about his childhood pain was considered too raw to release for almost 2 decades. His comedy came from survival, not silliness. Still, there were sparks of hope. Teachers sometimes let him perform instead of punishing him, recognizing a rare talent. In 1981, at 19, he landed his first film role in Introducing Janet, later Rubberface, playing a struggling comic much like himself. It wasn't stardom, but it was a beginning. That same year, with only $200, he left Toronto for Los Angeles. He slept on comedy club couches and lived off free meals, performing anywhere he could. By 1982, he was on stage at the Comedy Store, sharing a space once ruled by Richard Pryor and Robin Williams. Rodney Dangerfield spotted him one night and invited him on tour in 1982 to 83. Jim was the youngest act, often hungry, but finally performing for thousands. Small TV roles followed, poorly paid but stepping stones. In 1983, he made $50 a week performing sketches for the Sex and Violence Family Hour while living in an empty apartment. In 1984, he booked the sitcom The Duck Factory, his first big opportunity, but it was canceled after 13 episodes, plunging him into debt again. And still, he refused to quit. Jim Carrey got his first real taste of success in 1985 with Once Bitten. Critics weren't impressed, but audiences noticed him, and the rubber-faced kid from Ontario suddenly had traction. But the same period brought chaos. An arrest for marijuana possession, a brief fling with Mia Farrow, and a growing dependence on cocaine to survive all-night rehearsals. He later called those years some of his darkest. Still, he kept grinding. He auditioned for Saturday Night Live 3 times, in 1980, 1983, and 1986, and was rejected each time. His final try fell apart when a Robin Williams impression bombed. Rather than quit, he reinvented himself, creating bizarre characters no one else dared attempt. One of them, Fire Marshal Bill, would soon change everything. By 1990, at age 28, Carrey joined In Living Color, the Fox sketch show known for pushing every boundary. His manic energy stood out instantly. Over 5 seasons, he created more than 120 sketches, but Fire Marshal Bill became a phenomenon. Wild, unsettling, unforgettable. It was the first time a white comedian broke out on a show dominated by black comedy legends, and viewers couldn't stop talking about him. Behind the laughs, he was wearing himself out. To play characters like Vera DeMilo, he changed his weight constantly, threw himself into furniture, and used his body like a cartoon prop. Injuries piled up, twisted ankles, bruises, but he kept going, fueled by ambition and Adderall during brutal 80-hour work weeks. At the same time, his marriage to Melissa Wummer began to crumble under fame, long nights, and broken trust. She filed for divorce in 1995, saying he wasn't the man she married. In Living Color itself became a battleground as sketches drew controversy, and network executives panicked. After years of pushing limits, Carrey finally left in 1994. But he didn't fade. He exploded. That same year, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, hit theaters. A low-budget comedy no one expected to matter became a global hit, turning Carrey into a box office star. He improvised nearly half his lines, invented "all righty then" on the spot, and shaped the entire film with unpredictable genius. He lived inside the character, staying in Ace's apartment, avoiding showers, dyeing his hair, until Jim and Ace blurred into one. Studios stopped doubting him and started chasing him. The TV oddball had become Hollywood's new king of comedy. Success brought Jim Carrey fame, and a price he never expected. He earned $350,000 for Ace Ventura, then skyrocketed to $7 million for Dumb and Dumber and $20 million for The Cable Guy. But as the checks got bigger, he began to unravel. During the Dumb and Dumber promo tour, he suffered a nervous breakdown, hallucinated, and admitted to using cocaine just to stay awake. He called himself a manic depressive clown, a man wearing a mask, not the green one, but the kind that hides a collapsing soul. Even the merchandising haunted him. Ace Ventura dolls, lunchboxes, T-shirts were everywhere. Yet Carrey felt powerless over his own image. In 1995, he sued Warner Brothers for $20 million, claiming they used his face in video games without permission. It became a landmark case for image rights, but for him, it was simply a fight for control. His $15 million return for Ace Ventura. When Nature Calls marked one of comedy's biggest paydays, but the film troubled him. He hated the script's cruelty, argued with writers, and tried to fix scenes on set. The movie still made $212 million, yet Carrey walked away feeling compromised. Meanwhile, The Mask exploded worldwide. $352 million on an $18 million budget. Carrey endured 12-hour prosthetic sessions that burned his skin, but the movie launched Cameron Diaz's career and revived swing culture. Dumb and Dumber followed, earning $270 million, with Carrey improvising nearly a third of Lloyd's lines. The shoot was chaotic. He broke his ankle attempting a stunt and finished scenes while limping, but cracks were showing. Fox sued him for $10 million over in-living color residuals. His yearly income passed $20 million, yet at the MTV Awards he collapsed backstage, whispering that he needed a break. He was exhausted, paranoid, and running out of breath. So when he filmed the stormy boat escape in The Truman Show, the terror you see on his face wasn't acting. It was real. Peter Weir pushed Jim Carrey to his limits on The Truman Show. That storm sequence, the one where Truman fights the waves, took more than 150 takes. The crew built a massive artificial ocean, and Carrey was hit with so much water that he nearly drowned before crew members jumped in to pull him out. But when it came time to film Truman touching the wall and stepping into freedom, it took only one take. The film cost $60 million and earned $264 million, and Carrey's performance stunned audiences into silence. For the first time, people saw him not just as a comedian, but as a force. To reach that level, he lived inside the dome set for weeks, isolating himself completely. He barely spoke to anyone, refused to go home, and let the loneliness consume him. It made the performance deeper, but it also caused tension. Carrey clashed with Weir, demanding more control and even asking for a $20 million bonus if he won a Golden Globe. He did win, but by then the relationship with the director had already fractured. Then came Man on the Moon. Carrey didn't play Andy Kaufman. He became him. He lost 40 pounds, stayed in character off camera, and unnerved the entire cast. Danny DeVito asked for breaks because he couldn't handle Carrey's intensity. In one scene, Carrey injected himself with saline to mimic chemotherapy symptoms. He won another Golden Globe, but off-screen, his marriage to Lauren Holly collapsed. Even Carrey later admitted the role pushed him into dangerous psychological territory. His earlier work carried similar shadows. On Batman Forever, he poured manic energy into the Riddler, designing 20 custom canes for the role. The film earned $336 million, yet Carrey was privately battling anxiety and relying on Valium. His clashes with Tommy Lee Jones became legendary, and while Liar Liar brought in $300 million, much of it fueled by his improvisation, Carrey later sued Universal for a $2 million bonus he claimed they withheld. The dispute ended quietly, but it marked another fracture behind the fame. During The Cable Guy, things slipped into darker territory. The movie earned $12 million on opening weekend, but behind the scenes, Carrey's commitment to Chip Douglas became unsettling. He pushed the role so far that Matthew Broderick struggled to respond, once snapping, "I don't know how to react anymore." Long days turned chaotic. One muddy stunt even tore Broderick's cornea, and delays kept him waiting 14 hours in his trailer. What was meant to be a dark comedy felt more like an experiment in going too far. How the Grinch Stole Christmas took an even heavier toll. The film made $345 million, but Carrey spent hours trapped inside a prosthetic suit that felt suffocating. The makeup burned, tore, and restricted every movement. He demanded retakes, fought for perfection, and left the production physically wrecked. The makeup team won an Oscar, but Carrey carried the exhaustion for months. Then came the tragedy that shook his private world. In 2015, Catriona White, Carrey's on-and-off partner, died from a drug overdose. Her note accused him of emotional abuse and supplying pills. Her estate sued, alleging he gave her STDs and abandoned her when she was at her weakest. Carrey's team called it extortion, and the case was dismissed in 2018, but the shadow of the scandal never fully lifted. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Carrey abandoned comedy entirely. Michel Gondry shot the film without traditional cues, forcing Carrey into raw, unpredictable emotional territory. The 17-hour days, chaotic production, and intense character work left him drained and depressed. The performance was brilliant, but it took months for him to recover. His personal life suffered too. His daughter Jane was diagnosed with autism in 2012, and by 2018 she had publicly distanced herself, criticizing his worldview. Losing his father in 2006 hit hard as well. Carrey paid for the funeral himself, writing a $10 million check as a symbolic gesture of how far he'd come from their days living out of a camper van. Even after hinting at retirement in 2018, he couldn't stay away. He returned in Sonic the Hedgehog in 2020, a film that earned $319 million. He joked he came back for the money. I bought a lot of stuff. But the truth was clearer. The industry still wanted him. For Sonic 3, he reportedly earned $30 million, and the studio even printed his script in real 24-karat gold ink to draw him in. Pain or not, Jim Carrey never fully left Hollywood.